Welcome to our third and final part of extracting a subject from its original background, placing it into a new background, doing some selective sharpening based on the focus area of your subject as the camera recorded it, tidying up the edges of the image, and then converting the image to black and white just to have a secondary view of the image. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring back our image on Photoshop, and where we left off in section 2, we had effectively created a new background and we cut out our image. And what we're going to do first of all is we're going to switch off these two layers. And when we switch these two layers off, we can see the image on the background. What we want to do now is that we want to create a new copy, and the system will create this copy. And we go to select, and we're going to select by focus area. So in other words, whenever this image is copied, it will only copy the area which the camera seen in focus at the time the image was taken. So if I click on focus area and say OK, I want this to be outputted to a new layer. So we're actually going to see a new layer on the screen. And as you can see, the areas of focus that the camera saw, and that meant that the parts of the body that were in the focus plane are this arm, the hand, and the face, and the rest of the body was effectively behind the focus area, and therefore it was not in perfect focus, and therefore it's not picked up by the camera. What we want to do with this particular area is that we want to go to our filter, and on the filter we want to select other, and then we're going to select high pass. For this instance here, I'm going to select a radius of pixels of 10, although whenever we brush in the focusing, we will not be brushing in the full value of 10. And we will be selective as to where we want the sharpening to appear on our image. So I'm just going to say OK. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my blend mode. And my blend mode is going to be changed to soft light so we can see the effects of the change. And if we switch on the layer which lies below, we switch off the sharpening and switch on the sharpening, you can see the sharpening effect is there. What we want to do with this sharpening effect is we want to hide it behind a mask and therefore apply it in line with our choice. We want to brush it in. So the next thing we want to do is with holding our Alt or Option key, we want to click on a mask. Before we do that, we have to make sure that these are the other way around. So if we press that button, white on top and black on the bottom, then if we press our Option key and press our mask, we will effectively get a black mask which hides the effect of the sharpening. And this now will allow us to brush in the sharpening into the image. Next thing we want to do is we want to pick up a brush, and we pick up the brush and bring it over onto the image. We can see the area of the brush. What I would do is keep the area of the brush small in the first instance, because what we want to do is we want to be able to brush in the areas, the small areas like the eyebrows and the eyes, and down into the mouth, and just over the top of this area here. Remember, we're not looking to effectively sharpen the entire image. We just want to bring up some points of interest that will be sharper than the remainder. We don't want to be too sharp on it. You know, you get the idea. And effectively, I don't want to overcook it. And I would say that at this particular point in time will be sufficient. What you will see, it will be very subtle, but if you brush very hard on the image, the more you brush, the more visible over here your adjustments will be. And as you can see from this swatch, which is selected, you can see the grey areas coming through, indicating the level of sharpness that is being applied. For this particular point, I am happy that I've applied enough sharpening for us to proceed with the rest of the adjustments. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to switch on everything else, and as a result of that, I'm going to flatten this image. So I'm going to go to Layer, and I'm going to flatten my image. We now again have made it all permanent. So what I'm going to do in the background is just again call it master, and by saying OK, the lock will disappear, and I'm going to make a copy. So if I drag a copy down, what I want to do here is I want to effectively soften up the areas just around the edge of the hairline, and to do that I'm going to go into my tool here. It looks like a little plaster, and what I want to do on the plaster is I want to choose the spot healing brush, and we're going to blow it up a little bit, because whenever you blow it up, you're effectively able to introduce your change, but that change will not be as aggressive whenever you bring it back down to size. So we want to pick up our brush tool, and again let's make the brush a small brush, and we want to just effectively go around the edge. Oh, mistake, excuse me, one little mistake. I picked up that, so I'm going to undo that. So image, edit, undo, and that's okay. Pick up the proper tool, which is our plaster tool, and now we can apply. And as you can see, as we roll down this edge, it now looks a bit more there we go. I mean, you can take more time at this than I am, and it's all to make this a bit more realistic. I'm just going to do this rather quickly for illustration purposes, and we can see that those lines are now not as aggressive. And if we bring it back down to our screen view, it looks as though the hair is effectively naturally growing out. Okay, again, as I said, this video, keeping it short, you can spend a bit more time in enhancing it to your taste. With that said, we effectively now can crop our image, and what we want to do with our image is we want to crop it with impact. So I'm going to crop it so that we're looking at the shoulders, the hand, the head. I'm going to lose this part. I don't think there's value in retaining that part, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag out where I want it to be. Now I have favored this particular overlay, and what this overlay is going to do is this overlay is going to help me establish where the interest is going to be, and it's going to be over this eye. Remember, the eye in a portrait is effectively the most impactable area. So I'm just going to tuck that into here and move it up. And I believe that there would be sufficient. If we now enter on the keyboard, we now have, let's say, a image. I'm just going to make a slight adjustment here. I'm just going to tuck this corner in. And there we go. Let me just bring that up on screen. And if we view it in full screen mode, and there we have the shot. And as you can see, there's a greater impact of the subject making connection with his audience. What we want to do with this image now, we can flatten it. So if I go to layer and flatten, I'm just going to save a copy of the color. So I'm going to save as. I'm going to save it to the computer. And you'll just have to bear with us. We're currently working now with a file which has increased in size with the number of adjustments that we've done. And working at 16-bit, what we wanted to do was preserve all of the detail. And therefore, when we're saving the file off, the area has got quite a lot to identify to put into that save location. And now that that's done, I'm just going to actually name this the third level and save the image out to disk. And we can see it saving at the bottom of the screen. What I now want to do with this particular file, I will just unlock it. We're not going to name it master this time, we're just going to send it out to Photoshop and convert it to black and white. So if we go to our filter and go to camera raw, the image is going back out to camera raw. And at this particular stage in camera raw, we want to go to our profile. And because we've kept this file as a 16-bit file, it still recognizes the file as a full raw conversion file. So we've got all of the characteristics still present. So we can go to black and white and move down, and I'm going to choose 3. And effectively we can move our selection up or down the scale until we're happy. I'm just going to knock this in at 90% for illustration purposes. And if we say OK, that will go back to Photoshop as a black and white image, and file, save as, saving onto the computer. And we're going to call this number 4. And we'll just do a BW for the black and white, and we can save this image back to the disk. I would like to think that throughout the course of the last 3 videos, you've been inspired, and you'll do a bit of experimenting on your own, trying to improve images using the Photoshop techniques. I thank you for your attention, and we'll see you in the next session.